Special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Love Is podcast. I'm excited to welcome the host of the Love Is podcast, Kim Sorrelle. Kim, how are you? I know you're excited about our guest.
I'm doing great, Neil. Thank you. And yes, I'm so excited. Darren Mulligan from We Are Messengers, by far my favorite Christian band that is out there right now. I love you guys. Your music is so deep and so rich, and you can just feel it in your soul and feel it from the bottom of your toes till the top of your head. It's like anytime I'm singing along, listening to you guys, I just go to a different place. And I don't know if you realize how transcending your music is, but holy cow, Darren, you are one talented guy, and I appreciate you so much. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, that might be the nicest intro I've had in a long, long time. Thank you so much. No, I don't realize that because I'm a very grounded kind of man. You know, I live out in the woods in a wee cottage in Ireland, and when I'm not doing what we do with We Are Messengers, I live a very simple, ordinary life. But when I get to catch a glimpse of that is when I hear stories from people at our shows, or, you know, who've emailed us, or from yourself, and I'm really, really grateful. And it's not like a false humility or being facetious. I really feel privileged to do what I do. Like, I really feel honored because I'm a mess. Like, I am a mess of a man. And my sins are many, but his mercy is more. And that's why I write the kind of songs I do, to put words to the things you can't articulate sometimes. And honestly, sometimes to put songs to my own life so I can get out of bed in the morning. And when the monsters come at night, I have Jesus with me to carry me.
And how did it start for you as a musician? How old were you?
Oh, man, it's a strange story because I didn't sign my record deal until I was 35. So I think I was one of the oldest guys to ever sign a major label record deal. Um, but that journey started when I was 7, with my mom and dad dancing in the kitchen, listening to Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. I fell in love with music, where it could take people. And as I grew older, I became an atheist, an agnostic, fell into promiscuity and drunkenness and violence. And at that time, I was playing in heavy metal bands and screamo bands because I love rock and roll. You know, I always did. I still do love rock and roll. Really, it was my girlfriend, long-term girlfriend, who had a radical encounter with Jesus when I was 27. And she led me to faith in the Lord just a few weeks before we got married. And her forgiveness and her kindness to me was the catalyst for me really falling in love with Jesus, the Gospels. And at the time, very interestingly, I sold all of my guitars, sold all of my instruments, because I associated music with everything that was wrong with me, the things I had done, the shame I carried. And a couple of years later, I got an opportunity to serve in our little church that we still go to in Ireland. And yeah, God just opened doors. We said yes more often than we said no. It's been a really wonderful journey. Terrible, horrible, beautiful, ugly. But isn't that just life, you know? And so we've been doing it ever since. And I'll tell you this, I regret a lot of things about me, the mistakes I've made in my life. But I don't regret a song I've ever written. You know, I think it's one of the few areas in my life that I have kept really pure, really honest, and carefully I go about it trying to give that talent back to Jesus, because I don't deserve that kindness. So I'm going to do the best I can with it.
Well,
Wow.
you do a great job with it, Darren, that's for sure. And I think because of the richness of your story, the good, the bad, the ugly, you're able to go to a different level. You're able to go deeper. And it's like one of those things where you hate having to go through crap in life. And
Yeah.
when you're in the middle of it, it's like, oh, why am I in the middle of this? But if you can get to the other side of it and use it to help other people and minister to other people, like, that's gigantic. And that's what you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
so, yeah, absolutely. It can be easy to beat yourself up, right? And go, God, why did
Yeah.
I behave that way? But the reality is when God brings you to this new place in life where you're able to say, the past
Yeah.
isn't the past, you know, praise the Lord that In fact, one of my favorite verses is that came to pass, right? Because everything comes
Yes,
to pass. We get to leave it in the past and we get to move on. And you've done a beautiful job of that, even
thank you.
though things still, crop up, I'm sure. And then to say this wonderful woman came into your life, because behind every great man, right, is a great woman, they say. And Heidi is wonderful. So what is it about Heidi that made you fall in love?
I was just on the phone to her just before I jumped on here, and she's just heading off in Ireland in the car down a wee country road to go and pick up our kids from school. I think what Heidi has is she has this incredible level of service where she's able to give her life away because her love for her family and friends is so much greater than her love for herself. And I see Jesus in that. In American and Western Christianity, everyone wants to be more impressive. And what we don't need are more impressive men and women on stages. We need men and women, as with my wife, who have an impressive view of who Jesus is. And that's what transformed the world, you know, doing ordinary things consistently, like a quiet obedience in the same direction as Eugene Peterson says towards Jesus. That's what my wife has. No one is applauding for her. There are no records on the wall for her. There are no awards or statistics to show that she has achieved some great thing. But I tell you, I've got a stat for you. This is really cool. So my wife led me to Jesus when I was an adulterer. Okay. Um, a year later, she led my little brother to Jesus. He's now a deacon in our little church in Ireland and serves, and he's an evangelist, goes out on the streets and tells people about the Lord. And a couple of years ago, he led my older sister to Jesus. And then just a few months ago, I got a call from my mom and dad, both 76 years old. I was sitting in Tennessee, and with tears in their voices, they said, "Darren, we want to tell you that we have given our lives to Jesus." And so every Sunday in church, when I'm back in Ireland, we go to church with 3 generations of Mulligans who were lost but now are found, who were dead, who were blind but now see, all because one woman took a chance on a man who didn't deserve it. And I often tell people I don't know a Jesus in the clouds. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I do know Jesus at work in a good-looking, blonde, tall Scottish woman. And yeah, she's changed my world. Jesus, my wife, and my parents.
Mhm.
They are my heroes.
Oh, that's great. Now let's talk about your music. How does that transform other people? Because your goal is transformation. When you get
Yeah,
on stage, you want to transform people's lives. You want to change people's lives, give them
yeah,
hope, give them courage. How do
yeah.
you kind of define your music that you?
I, yeah, that's a really good question. I'll start by saying this. I think that for too long, musicians, artists, creatives, we have thought that the world revolves around us and that what we do is the most important thing in the world, even in the Christian world. And I just want to start out by saying that that is absolute nonsense. The local church is the hope of the world, always has been, always will be. And so, what this band does is we want to be a soundtrack to the lives of those in the local church doing the real work of the kingdom, and to be an instigator in people's lives who don't know Jesus, so that they may come and question, who is this Jesus? What has he done? And when they ask us that, we are able to give a reason for the hope that is in us. So we write songs for messy, broken people, people with mental health difficulties, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. We write songs for single mothers, single dads. We write songs for people who've lost their kids. We write songs for people who are dancing on mountaintops. Like, I don't write the same song every time. Every song sounds different. Every lyric is different, because really it's a progression of my own life. So the goal of these songs is to put words to the things you can't feel, to help God turn your mourning into laughter, your sorrow into joy, and your feet towards dancing. And our shows are rowdy, messy, rock and roll, worship, conversational, testimonial, weird amalgamations. Um, and some of the stories, and I'll say this really briefly, something really beautiful happened a few days ago. and this happens most days for me. I'm really blessed to see it. But a young lady came to a show, and she told me, she told the audience, actually, it was a question and answer time. She told me that she was lying on her brother's grave, and she had a pistol in her mouth, ready to take her own life. And the lyrics to a song of ours called "Come What May" ran through her head. And she said she took the pistol out of her mouth, stood up off the grave, and then next thing you know, she's sitting at our show. I don't think music saves people. Jesus does that, but he certainly uses it to draw people towards himself.
And he's the creator of all, right? So
Yeah.
music is something that is woven throughout the Bible, and it's
Yeah.
part of life. It's been part of life, I'm sure, from the beginning. I'm sure there was music in the Garden of Eden. You know, music is
Yeah.
just always the celestial sounds and whatever. So music is something that just kind of gets in your soul. You know, I think about
Yeah.
when you're a kid and you learn a song and then you still know the song years and years later. Right? You know, it just stays with you. Music does that to you. And so there's a beautiful, wonderful thing that happens when then the music is coming from somebody else's soul, when
Yeah.
it's not just descriptive of something, but when it really comes from down deep,
Yeah.
then it makes such a difference. And so it's no wonder you've gotten so many downloads and like billions of listens. And I could see where it would be difficult sometimes to go, you know, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me. We don't need to talk about numbers or money or anything, but the reality is the more money you make, I don't know what you're making, but whatever, but the more money you make, the more listeners you have, the more downloads that happen, the more people that show up to see you play, the more
Yeah.
people you're reaching. It's like
Yeah.
it's the barometer, right? For who
Yes.
you're reaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really fair comment. I think if your music really matters, like if it really matters, people are going to spend the money that they've earned during the week, working 9 to 5 jobs to put food on their kids' table, to come out and be a part of what you're doing. And I always make the distinction between what we do and maybe what happens on a Sunday morning, right? I'm not a worship leader. My job is not to lead people into the throne room of heaven. Only Jesus can do that. Okay. My job is to give you an opportunity to come to an event that has cost many thousands of dollars to put on. Our job is to entertain, because entertainment is not bad. Entertainment that is honoring to God is really, really beautiful, actually. You know, so entertain, make sure people have a good time, and then challenge and encourage. And I was reading the Beatitudes the other day, you know, in Matthew, and you see Jesus saying, "Blessed are those who mourn; they'll be comforted." We want to do that. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for there's the kingdom of heaven. We want to remind them of that. But after that passage, Jesus is still on the same mountain, still talking to a crowd of thousands. And then he starts saying, "Hey, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. I hate these things. Divorce. I hate your sexual immorality. You know, you can't love God and money." So Jesus is both, right? Jesus is the ultimate comforter, the ultimate kindness, the ultimate goodness. And he's also the one that challenges us the most. And he says, "Come away, come follow me, learn to walk in the rhythms of my grace. Do what I do, love how I love, and you'll find rest for your soul." So our band, we want to be about the things Jesus is about. And Jesus is about those who are weary. Jesus is about the poor, the powerless, the immigrant, the outsider, the lost, the least, the beggar, the prostitute, the thief, the rich and the poor. And we are for what he is for.
Mhm.
You know, in American culture, it seems to be that we're always known by what we're against. You know, what are we against? I care more about what Jesus is for. If we love the things he loves, that's where we see transformation. And I think that's where our music can play a really important part.
Fantastic. Kim has a love question, and you can go a little further into that love question. And I think he's going to really enjoy this question.
Okay.
I love what you just said, by the way. I think it's so true. And I think the reason that Jesus hates divorce and hates thievery, hates, you know, all the stuff is because he knows that we can live such better lives without it all.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what he wants for us, is just a great life. And so I have a great life by the way. I'm happy and whatever, but 15 years ago, my husband passed away. And for whatever reason, a lot of reasons, I questioned the true meaning of love, because it's like, it's something that people have searched for years, and yet there's not a true, real great definition. There's all these sub definitions, but what is love really? So I took
Yeah.
1 Corinthians 13, and I decided I'd take a word or phrase a month and really work
Okay.
on it. Love is patient. What is love that is patient? What is love that is kind? And I was in Haiti, working in Haiti most of the time while I was doing it. And the
Yeah.
things I found out about love just blew my mind and rocked my world. Like, I found out things about love that were taught wrong, myths that were taught about love, even in the church. And so love is everything. I believe
Yeah.
love is, walking, talking, living, breathing. And when I hear you even now talking, you exude love. When you
Oh,
talk about
thank you.
Jesus, you can see your love for him. When you talk about Heidi, you glow. There's this love that just comes out of you. Where does love play a role? And what is your definition of love? How do you see love?
Oh, wow, that's a really deep question. Um, I think that has changed over the years as I've got older. Obviously within a relationship, there's a romantic love, and then I think there's a love that deepens over time, and that comes, I think, out of watching your partner, in my case, my wife, give her life away so that I can have mine, and in turn, I try to give my life away so that she can have hers, and neither is fully possible. I see the ultimate, when I look at the ultimate kind of love, and again, everyone looks at it different, right? You have to remember, I'm an Irishman, I'm rowdy, I use a hatchet to share the gospel sometimes when I should be much more tender, right? For me, the ultimate love, right? When people ask me, can Jesus love someone like me? I use my wife as an example because that's the kindness. When I told her everything I had done, I waited for her to push me away and reject me and give me what I deserve. But instead, she put her arms around me and kissed me and said, I forgive you. That's how I fell in love with the love of God, right? So that's that kindness and tenderness and beauty. But when you realize what your sin costs, what you deserve, what I deserve for the things I have done, the only way to truly look at love is to look at the man, Christ Jesus, hanging naked on a tree, with his heart being crushed under the weight of our sin, right? Taking what we deserved, being spat on and mocked, and with blood streaming down his side, right? For me, love looks like a man hanging on a tree for me. And I think when we move too far from the cross, we forget what true love is.
Mm-hmm.
True love gives itself away so that others can have their lives ultimately back in Jesus, but even in the earthly realm. I got to learn to, what, those scriptures, husbands love your wives, wives submit to your husbands. Those things are interdependent and codependent. And I think that's, Jesus wants husbands to love their wives like he loves the church. And he wants their wives to love their husbands the way that they're to love the head of the church, which is Jesus. There's no weakness in biblical submission, and there is no anger in biblical love. It is a respect and tenderness that runs both ways. And ultimately, for me as a man, when the wolf comes to the door, I'm the first man out of the house because I will give every single thing I have to protect my wife and family.
Powerful. Wow.
Beautiful.
Kim, that was one of probably the best answers we've had of the love question.
Yeah, it was so good, Darren. It's a testimony to who you are, that you can just talk from your heart so freely. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where can we get your music? Best place, Darren.
Yeah. I don't know. WeAreMessengersMusic.com. Yeah, everywhere you get music, you can get our music. And again, I find this a real privilege just to speak to you both. I don't take anything for granted. These songs, this season of our life, we have found a joy and a contentment in Jesus that I thought I would never have. You know, I used to think that the ultimate goal was happiness, even if you look at the American Constitution, you know, the pursuit of happiness. And I think what those forefathers meant was ultimately the pursuit of pleasure in Jesus, as in enjoying Jesus, right? And we've taken that, we've turned it into enjoying substances and promiscuity and lust and success and pride and envy and consuming. And for me, I found my joy. That's why the new record's called Where the Joy Is, because I realized that all God ever wanted me to do was take a walk with him, stay close enough to touch his hem, hear his voices, listen to what he cares about, and do the same things. And ultimately, my joy has been found in a quiet, long obedience in the same direction as Jesus.
All right. Well, fabulous. Thanks for stopping by, Kim. What a great simulcast we had today. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Love Is podcast, guys. Take care.